Hello everyone. So for today's card I'm trying something completely different. Christina Werner and Jennifer Maguire most notably do this a lot with their distress inks by pressing them onto a craft mat, and then you spray them with water and press your cardstock into it and you get some really neat results. So I wanted to try that, but I don't have any distress ink colors, so I thought I would use my Favorite Things inks. Even though they're not the same type of inks, you can get somewhat similar results. So I had tried it out and I loved how it ended up turning out. So I decided to film and make a second card. So I'm just using razzleberry, lemon drop, and blue raspberry and pressing them onto my craft sheet. You could use any non-porous surface, so like some wax paper or a Ziploc bag, just something that's flat and that the ink can pool up on. And I made sure to space everything apart because I didn't want the ink pads picking up the other colors and messing up my ink pads. So I just pressed them onto my craft sheet in just a random order, spritzed it really well with water, and then I've got some watercolor paper. This is just the Canson 140-pound brand that I got at Michael's, but you definitely need watercolor paper for this. Something heavyweight because it's going to get really, really wet, and regular cardstock would just turn into a huge mess. So grabbed my watercolor paper, which I had cut a bit larger than an A2 card front, and then you just press it right into the colors. So it gives you a really neat kind of a look. You have to be a little more careful with these because these inks can get a bit muddy. That's where the distress inks are, the more preferred kind, but this totally works. If you keep them to more similar colors, like, yellows, oranges, and pinks, they'll just create more shades of color, but adding in the blues and that, it could get a bit muddy, but I was aware of that. So I'm just kind of careful about what I do, and you just heat set or dry the layers. After the first bit, I'd use my heat tool, let it dry, and then you just press it in again, and you get like all this neat little splatter effect. So I just kept doing that and kept looking at it till I was happy with it, and then I'd dry it again with my heat tool just to speed things up because otherwise it would take forever to dry. And then just kept pressing it in until I was happy with it. So it looks kind of messy at the moment, but my whole idea for it was to use this is the new Floral Fusion Cover-Up Dynamics, and it is fabulous. I seriously went nuts when I saw it. I was so excited. So this was one of the ideas that just popped in my head. Oh my god, I had to try it. So I wanted to do this watercolor type background and die cut the Floral Fusion cover-up with black cardstock, and I had this whole idea going. And when I started making everything, I ended up going a whole different route, which you guys are going to see in a couple seconds, and ended up die cutting the watercolor piece with the die. And does that not look amazing? I just loved it, and that's why I had to start filming and just show you guys how I made it. Because yeah, it looks so neat. So this first piece I had die cut, and then I saved the second piece that I showed earlier how to make, and I'm going to just make two different cards. So I had a few different ideas going. The ideas are rolling and I didn't even know where to begin, but what I ended up doing was die cutting another piece of black cardstock with the Floral Fusion cover-up, and I'm going to adhere it to the back of the die cut watercolor piece. It just gives it that little extra bit of weight and thickness to it. I was going to adhere the watercolor piece straight onto a card, but it just seemed to be missing something, so I die cut the second piece from black, and you can't really see it, but in real life it just gives it that little extra something. And then from the edge you can see that little bit of black kind of peeking out from behind the die cut, and it looks really cool. So I took a piece of white cardstock and I'd cut it by 4 1/4 by 11 inches and scored it at 5 1/2, so it's a top folding card. And then I'm going to adhere that right to the card. So again, using my Tombow Mono Multi and just really thin lines of glue, really quick and simple. This is my go-to glue, especially for things like this because it holds perfectly. So just kind of scribbled it around. I went and added more than I normally would just because everything had been, watercolored and it's a little bit heavier. So I wanted to make sure it was adhered really, really well to my card and doesn't fall off, and it won't. It is like super glued on. So got my adhesive on, and I'm just going to adhere that to my card front. And I wanted to keep the rest of anything I add to the card pretty simple because I want this piece to take center stage because I loved it. I loved how it turned out. It's just one of those things where you're like so proud of yourself. So what I ended up doing was grabbing my Happy Hellos Dynamics and die cut the one hello several times, again from black cardstock, and then just adhering them all together, which is another thing that's really popular lately, is people staggering their die cuts or adhering multiples together, because it's so much easier to do it this way than it is to try and add dimensionals to them, because they're just too thin and small and it would take forever. So by adhering them all together, it's all stacked up and can stand out a little bit more, and it's got some extra weight to it, almost like chipboard. So really fun. I've kind of really been getting into doing stuff like that lately. So I adhered 4 layers together, and then I'm going to glue that right on top of the Floral Fusion that I had watercolored and die cut. And then thinking back now, I would have added the Wink of Stella before adhering it just to make it easier, but I grabbed my black Wink of Stella, and in real life it looks so cool on the black cardstock. It just shimmers like crazy. But yeah, I would have done this before adhering it because then I could have coated all the edges and stuff too, but it works as it is. But yeah, hindsight's always 20/20. So to finish off the inside, I just added a little strip of the watercolor paper that was left over after die cutting it. And then you don't see it in the video, but I ended up actually cutting down one of the flowers from one of the black flowers and adhering that. So you'll see it in the picture at the end. Now for the second card, I went with my original idea and adhered the piece of black cardstock that I die cut with a Floral Fusion and adhered it right over the watercolor paper. So a totally different sort of look, yet super fun. And again, I didn't want to cover anything up, but so to finish the card, I die cut a piece of lightweight vellum, like really thin, delicate vellum, with one of the dies from the new Blueprints 13 set. And then I'm using my embossing buddy and trying to be really careful because, like I said, this is lightweight vellum, so it's really delicate, really thin, but it's perfect because then you can really see through it. And then I'm inking up a stamp from the new Chalkboard Greetings 2 set with Versamark and stamping that onto the die cut. And yeah, in the past couple of videos, I'm showing all these new products from MFT. These are all March release products, so there'll be info on my blog about all this stuff because none of it is available yet, but the links will go live when they're available. So yeah, more info will be in my blog post, which I link to directly below the video. And yeah, you guys can see I finally sucked it up and put my white embossing powder into a container to use with a spoon. I'm not 100% sure if I'm happy with it. My OCD just twerks. But yeah, I was talking about it on my Facebook page and so many people were like, basically just suck it up and do it already. So I did, but yeah, I saved the original containers. I don't know if I'm happy with it. But anyway, embossed the stamp with white embossing powder, and then I folded the top over so I could adhere it to the card front because, again, with vellum, any adhesive you use, or most adhesives you use, will show through, and that just makes it look ugly. So that's one way to do it. And then I added tiny little bits of adhesive here and there behind the embossed areas so that I could adhere it just a little bit more, just to give it a little bit more secure so it's not going to like tear off or anything. And then finally, I'm going to adhere that to my card front. Another top folding A2 card and my Tombow Mono Multi again. This is like my go-to adhesive for things like this because it just, once it dries, it is permanent. So got everything adhered, and then for the inside of this card, I had some more strips left over of these watercolor pieces, and I didn't want to throw them out. They looked so cool and it was so fun and the bright colors. So I actually just took 2 of the pieces and trimmed them down and then just adhered them side by side. And then I die cut one more piece of black cardstock with the Floral Fusion cover up and marked kind of with my finger where it would go on the inside of the card so I don't add too much adhesive and just waste adhesive and time. And got the glue down and made sure on this bottom area here to really get the adhesive on every little part because I'm going to trim this off and I don't want parts like falling off or flipping up at all. So got the adhesive on, press that down, and then I'm just going to flip it over and trim it off with my scissors, and the insides are done. So like I said, there will be a link below the video to my blog post, and there'll be all the info about these new products and links to the supplies used. Thank you guys so much for watching, and I will see you all in the next video. Bye!